So recently, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but the war in Ukraine and Russia has changed, and a lot of things have happened recently where Biden went ahead and okayed the Ukrainians to fire missiles into across the border into Russia at military targets, and they've demolished them. It's been a phenomenal campaign. On top of that fact, I think France and Poland also authorized them to use their weapons. So they've been doing this. They've attacked the Russians now on their own soil just to cripple their military. But there's more going on to this. Putin then fired a missile back. It was like a medium range missile, and it was like a test missile, and it didn't really do anything. And Joe Rogan's going to talk about that, and we'll get to that in a second. But I want to get to this first so you understand the context, because Joe could have taken the 5 minutes I did to look at this up and, well, 10 minutes to read the articles and everything, but he didn't. So here's national interest and Ukraine and Russia's collapsing home front. Okay, Western observers are neglecting important developments. Judging by what's being said on the Russian home front, Putin has already lost the war. He's lost the front. And the only question is what face-saving measures can be extracted through a settlement. So Putin is pretty much lost. And we'll go a little bit more through this, but I'm just going to jump into ahead and go, Ukraine now controls the front. The Russians have lost over 600,000 troops. Or not dead, but casualties. I mean, either dead or injured. I mean, that's more than died in the Civil War. I mean, that's a huge number of people. So Russia invades Ukraine. For those of you who don't know, Russia invades Ukraine. Why? Because Putin thinks that Ukraine belongs to Russia, when Russia belongs to him, so it's all him, right? He gets 600,000, over 600,000 of his own people either killed or severely wounded, tanks the economy, because we put sanctions on him and other countries have put sanctions on him because they invaded a sovereign nation. Tanks the economy, people are starving, Russia's for shit. You can't get, I mean, it's hard to get sugar in Russia. Things are so bad. And he's starting to lose the war, and people are pissed in Russia. He needs to have some sort of way out of this where he can save face. So the best option for him right now, and this is what the Kremlin has been putting out, is, hey, we're willing to come to some sort of deal, and the U.S. and Ukraine and Europe should come to some sort of deal with us where we get some sort of chunk of Ukraine. Even though he's lost the war. Why would Ukraine give up part of their country to the losing party? But he wants us to pressure them to do it, the U.S. and Europe, to pressure them to do it to end this. So that's why he fired the missile, because he's trying to stoke fear. But that's what's going on. So, since February 24th, 2022, when Russia's forces poured into Ukraine, Western observers and governments have concentrated their attention on the fighting front. Intelligence agencies in Britain, Poland, and the Baltic countries, and the United States have provided their governments with steady updates on the action, while independent bodies like the Institute and Study of War in Washington have done as well or better for the public at large. News organizations have proven less successful, in part because they tend to give equal time to bogus official reports from Moscow. So he's in a propaganda war to tell his people that, no, this is actually going well when he's lost. Meanwhile, over the same period, Western governments and the press, neglecting Napoleon's mot that armies proceed on their bellies, have largely neglected related developments on Russia's home front. The few Western journals still functioning in Moscow self-censor in the hope of preserving their accreditation and visas, so they can't say what's really going on, or they'll get kicked out of Russia, and they'll lose their position. Their work is further hampered by the fact that nowadays few Russian officials consent to being interviewed, because Putin's trying to keep this under wraps so his people don't know what's going on. A bold and subtle young Russian, Daniel Orain, has filmed man-on-the-street interviews, but most of his subjects also engage in prudent self-censorship, because if they say anything against the Kremlin or Putin, they'll be arrested. So the West has largely missed, if not ignored, these developments on Russia's home front. But following the statements of Russian online bloggers, both official and unofficial, as well as C-SPAN-like coverage of Russia's Duma, does offer some compelling insights into the debates that are starting to effloresce over the country's future. An official Russian war correspondent, and this guy, I can't pronounce his name, recently reported that Russia does not control the front. And Yurik Divich, a Duma member and friend of the jailed chauvinist Igor Gherkin, opined it is now likely that the enemy will take a major Russian city. The enemy being Ukraine will take Russia, even though Ukraine's, the country being invaded. In the same vein, another guy, Andrei, chairman of the Duma Committee on Defense, declared that black days have begun for Russia. Even more blunt is the hard-nosed commentator Sergei Martin, who declared, enough of the lying, victory is not in sight. Meanwhile, a loyal ally of Vladimir Putin named Oleg May declared on October 29th the very concept of Ukraine should not exist, but it does, and as a result, hell has begun for us all. So, Russia's basically lost, and Putin's looking for a way out to save face. And that's what's going on right now. And that's why I think Biden was okay with, yeah, go ahead and fire weapons in there. And let's see if we can just crush them and get them to just give up. But the Kremlin has been pushing this whole thing about, no, we gotta save face, we gotta do something. So here's CNN, and I want to just cover this real quick.
Just moments ago, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that a Russian strike in Ukraine was carried out by, quote, an experimental non-nuclear ballistic missile which has a medium range. A U.S. official made a similar assessment earlier today after Ukraine accused the Kremlin of firing an intercontinental ballistic missile, a weapon designed to deliver long-distance nuclear warheads. These are new photos obtained exclusively by CNN showing the missile debris in the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. We want to get a military perspective now. Joining us is retired Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, former commander of U.S. Army forces in Europe. Sir, thank you so much for being with us. I do wonder about this distinction. The Kremlin saying this is an experimental medium-range ballistic missile. How is that different from an intercontinental ballistic missile?
Well, Boris, first of all, the ICBM, Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, that name evokes something that makes people think of the Holocaust, World War III, nuclear Holocaust, or World War III. And I think that got out and got people overly excited, which of course is exactly what the Russians wanted in the beginning. Now they're saying, oh, well, it's this medium range, not an intercontinental ballistic missile. And also it looks to be, I mean, it's been labeled as experimental. I think that's because it looks like it was not very effective. It clearly was not carrying a nuclear warhead. And when I've looked at the video of the pieces or the warheads that did impact around Dnipropetrovsk, it did not cause much damage. So it's hard to say how it.
So basically, Putin has got nothing. So he fires a mid-range missile, hoping to spook people and hoping to spook us into pressuring the Ukrainians into giving something up. Right? He's desperate. He is super desperate right now. So that's what's going on. So Putin's pretty much lost. Now, because Joe Rogan is paid for by the right wing, and he's in that bubble now, Joe Rogan's going to spew all of Russia's talking points on his show. Just to back up what I'm saying, that he's basically bought.
What I don't feel safer is right now they're launching missiles into Russia.
Yeah.
How are you allowed to do that when you're on the way out? They fired an intercontinental ballistic missile for the first time ever.
Okay, let me set this up for you real quick so you know.
So let me qualify that because I took this video from somebody else, but it wasn't intercontinental. It'd have to go between continents. Intercontinental. It was just a mid-range ballistic missile, but. We'll get into this a little bit because Joe's just going to go into this crazy rant that's basically
on Russia striking Ukrainian territory really is nuanced.
Let me skip ahead.
With another clip, speak for them.
The world we're living in now, and that's L.A., and that's New York, and that's a lot of places that got fucked up by incompetent people.
I don't know. I just feel safer knowing, like...
Pull this microphone with your face.
I feel safer knowing that Trump is in office.
I do, too.
I feel great about it.
What I don't feel safer is right now they're launching missiles into Russia.
Yeah.
How are you allowed to do that when you're on the way out? Like, the people don't want you to be there anymore. There should be like some sort of a pause for like significant actions that could potentially start World War III. Maybe that would be a good thing that we would like to avoid from a dying former president.
Okay, so the first thing.
That was the whole point. That was the whole Russian argument is, hey, this could start World War III if Ukraine doesn't back off and come to the table and give us part of Ukraine. And that's what Joe's going to argue. And that's what he does argue here. And that's what he's basically done. So let me skip ahead to where... Let's see if this is in better.
Russia head on.
Come on.
As Putin is terrified. F you, man. F you people. You.
Politics. I'm not
Zelensky
gonna
says
pretend
Putin
to.
is terrified. F you, man. F you people. You fucking people are about to start World War III.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Russia fired a missile today.
I feel
Yeah,
like
they fired an intercontinental ballistic missile for the first time ever. It's the first time one of those has ever been used.
that's insane.
Which is a lie. It was a medium-range missile and it was a dud. It was experimental. But he's basically saying, fuck the Ukrainians, who, by the way, are the country that's been invaded and who's just repelled the invader. And he's saying, fuck them, because Putin's now starting to threaten them. Well, what are they supposed to do? Roll over and die? Because Joe Rogan doesn't feel comfortable? I mean, this is my point. And I'm going to end on this whole thing, but the guy has been bought and sold already. So when you ask me the question, what's happened to Joe Rogan, that's what's happened to Joe Rogan. He got bought. He got $350 million. He now works for a billionaire. And he's into the right-wing shit. That's why he's spewing all this. That's why he's flipped all of his positions. Because now he needs that because he wants to maintain his wealth and his money. And he's got to keep kissing ass to do it. Now, I'm not saying he's necessarily a grifter or he's doing this consciously. It might be that he's just so stupid he believes the last thing he heard. Or he believes whatever's being told to him by whoever's paying him. I mean, he's just a useful idiot. But either way, he doesn't have the spine or the fortitude to go check it out. And so he just lies on air and says, yeah, well, they're firing intercontinental ballistic missiles. We're looking at World War III. No, we're not. Immigrants are coming in from jails from Venezuela. Venezuelan gangs are taking over Colorado. No, they're not. None of this is happening. We shouldn't jail kids. We shouldn't put kids in cages because they're immigrants. Oh, well, maybe we should. $350 million later, maybe we should. So here's Kiev clapping back in the Kiev Post. American podcast host Joe Rogan lashes out at Biden, Ukraine leadership. And explicative-laden comments, the podcaster said Ukraine's use of American-made missiles on military sites in Russia, used for firing at civilian and military targets in Ukraine, will lead to World War III. American podcaster Joe Rogan slammed outgoing President Joe Biden for greenlighting Ukraine's use of long-range weapons on military targets in Russia, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for using them. Zelensky says Putin is terrified, Rogan said. Fuck you, man. Fuck you people. You people are about to start World War III. Since the start of this full-scale invasion, Russia has been firing its missiles at Ukrainian targets, both military and civilian. However, despite knowledge of the location of Russian airfields and ammunition storage sites from which Russia launches strikes at Ukraine, Kiev had been unable to return attack on the targets with the missiles provided to it by its allies. However, following a recent escalation of Russian missiles and drone attacks, plus news that some 11,000 North Korean soldiers were joining Russia's war effort against Ukraine, good. After months of lobbying by Ukraine, Biden extended permission to Kiev to fire American-made ATACMs missiles at military targets in Russia. There's evidence that the UK may have also permitted Ukraine to use its long-range Storm Shadow cruiser missiles against invading Russian forces. In an attack with no reported casualties, on November 19th, Ukraine fired ATACM missiles at an ammunition depot in Russia's Bryansk region. On November 21st, Russia responded to Ukraine's escalation by striking an alleged military facility in the Ukrainian city of Dnipro with an intermediate-range ballistic missile, IRBM, dubbed Oreshnik. Meanwhile, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has vowed to end Putin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine within 24 hours of coming to office. How he intends to do that isn't clear. Of course it is, because he just makes shit up. Some, including Zelensky, have expressed hope that Trump will help bring about a just peace for Ukraine. We'll see. But he's got to at least pretend to be hopeful. Others worry that under Trump, the U.S. may pursue an appeasement policy with Russia similar to the one British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain had pursued in a failed attempt to avoid a war with Nazi Germany. So, that, I think, is an interesting paragraph. Because what Joe Rogan's pushing is that we do this appeasement and we give Russia something to avoid World War III. Well, that happened before British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain gave over some of I think it was Poland and France to Nazi Germany to try to avoid World War II, and guess what happened? Didn't avoid it. It just empowered them more. So it's all stupid, is my point. He doesn't look it up. He doesn't research. He doesn't care. He's got $350 million. Why should he give a shit? I don't know if he has a wife or a daughter, but, you know, the whole thing is like Trump's a rapist. It's like, well, if Trump had raped your wife or daughter, would you vote for him? Well, Joe obviously would for $350 million. That doesn't seem to bother him. Trump's a convicted felon and a fraudster. $350 million. On the one hand, you have moral fortitude and courage and conviction, and on the other hand, you know, $350 million. Joe's like, well, you know, what was in this hand? Because I'm more focused on this. And that's it. That's all that happened. So I just want to wrap it up with that. So thanks everybody for watching. Please like and subscribe and all that jazz. And we will see you later.